Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this on Sunday, October 26th in the year 2025 from beautiful, fabulous, overcast Escazú, Costa Rica. And I'm hoping for a sunset, even though it's overcast. It hasn't rained much, but I want to take a moment and talk about this Sun-Pluto square that has just happened. Now, this happened on Friday, but as my mentor teacher used to say, there's the fallacy of the partile aspect, meaning there is not the exact moment and not the exact day and exact time that things necessarily happen. And that was 9:25 a.m. on Friday morning, the 24th. And I have to say, I felt it all day yesterday. The Sun-Pluto all day yesterday. And that square is the first square we had since it was opposite Pluto. The Sun was opposite Pluto in July. And so now we're moving towards the conjunction, which will happen in January. And that's when the Sun will be in Aquarius. But the Sun is in Scorpio. And it made that contact, that square to Pluto, that rules Scorpio, on Friday morning, like I said. But yesterday, yesterday I got sad news from a friend that her sister had passed yesterday morning. And then I was having a day where there were going to be repairs done in my house. And I thought that they would not take very long. Well, one thing I thought might take a little long. I thought they wouldn't take very long, but they went into this morning. And it was a Ronald day. Remember Ronald? Ronald, who I did the Reiki on so he'd move the refrigerator when I expected him to a couple of months ago, which I can't believe it's been a couple of months now. But yeah, so Ronald had to come back with his cohort, his teammate, and fix 3 different things in my house. And waiting for Ronald is like waiting for Godot. Because you're waiting and he says he's coming at 10 and then it's now 11:30 and he's not here yet, and then finally he shows up 10 minutes to 12. So he's like, hey, hola. And so, he's funny. He speaks between Spanish and English, which is good because he's always asking questions about how you say something in English. So he's eager to learn, but he had to fix bathrooms and under the kitchen sink and all sorts of stuff. And so I have come to realize that I'm not a person who can feel comfortable while people are fixing things around me in my house. And I think I would not be good in a house that needs construction. Like, people, we can live in the house part-time while they're like adding the addition or while we're getting ready to do this to it or something. Last year when he had to fix the roof, I was like, but that went on for a couple of weeks because it was the roof and it rains this time of year. And so for me, I've realized that this is a very disruptive thing to have people, even though I came upstairs and I worked on my computer and I did some things that I needed to do, it just felt oppressive, shall I say, I guess. But these things were necessary and I wanted them done. So they had to get done. And I couldn't sit here and say, no, I don't want anybody in my house. And then in true Latino sitcom energy, he came through before he started his work. And then Giselle had to come through because she needed to talk to an engineer who was coming in through Trejos, where the garage is, which is where my one exit, and she was coming from the Dos Rios exit. So she comes through my house. She meets Ronald in the garage. The engineer comes. They talk to him about some project. She wants to build another apartment. Don't even get me started. And then she's talking with them, and somebody else comes through my garden looking for her. Her friend Marianella's husband. I don't know when he showed up on the scene, and then he had to walk through the garage, through my house, into the garage, and then all of them came parading back through to go to Giselle's house again. And then the engineer had to come back through to leave because the car was on the Trejo side by the garage, and then Ronald came in to do his work. So I shouldn't just say, oh, it's disruptive having work done. It's disruptive having 4 or 5 people parade through your house like it's a thoroughfare, like it's Grand Central Station, and they're just all going on, talking about something and projects that shouldn't be done, and and this is where yesterday was. So I was exhausted by like 6 o'clock, 6:30 when I had to run back out and find Ronald because something he fixed wasn't fixed and it was leaking. And so this is my Saturday, and this is a chaotic Sun Pluto that was not Sun Uranus or Mercury retrograde or something, but it was really pretty crazy. But anyway, my point being, don't expect the aspect to happen on the day of the aspect. It could be the day before. It could be the day after. It could be several days before. But this is why we know it's happening. The energy is around us. The theme is there. And of course, I had the theme of death that I mentioned earlier. But I didn't expect all this chaos, And so there it was. And of course, my sun is all tangled up in this because Pluto's close to my sun, and the sun was in Scorpio, squaring my sun. So all of this was very stirred up. So that's what that energy was, and I wouldn't say it was entirely transformative with people fixing things here. I mean, it does transform things and make it better, but it was just, my head was spinning. So yeah. A very interesting day, but I'm glad today was quiet. Now, tomorrow we have Mars still in Scorpio, making a connection with Jupiter, a very lovely connection, late Pacific time, 11:19 p.m. Pacific time, because it's making that same trine Tuesday morning, 2:19 a.m. Eastern time. So this is something that is lovely. It's high energy. It gives us energy to do things. It gives us the ability to get some things accomplished. And also, I think this is it's water. It's Mars in Scorpio, Jupiter in Cancer. They are both in really good places for themselves. And this brings us into a real grateful gratitude energy. Because whenever Jupiter's involved, it's good to be in gratitude. And I would say, this is a time to ponder some of that. Ponder the gratitude. Ponder your feelings of gratitude for your life and the things that you have. And there's some really actually very good energy this week. And I think this is, I'm going to say this, I hope I don't jinx myself. I'm going to say that this week I think is going to be more flowing and smooth than next week. Next week we've got some other things going on, which we'll talk about next Sunday. But there's a lot of energy happening next week that's heavier than this week's energy, and then the next couple weeks. So yeah, that's, we've got the Mercury retrograde happening on the 9th of November, which is a little ways away. It's a couple weeks away. And that's going to be right around the same time that Uranus goes back into Taurus. So that's a couple weeks. So let's focus on this week, but I want to let you know Mercury retrograde's coming, and Mercury is entering Sagittarius this week. So that's the big sign change this week. Mercury's going into Sagittarius. It will be on Wednesday of this week. Mercury goes into Sag 7:02 a.m. That is Eastern time on the 29th, Wednesday. Right before Mercury enters Sag, it's leaving Scorpio, and it makes a very nice contact to Neptune, which is in Pisces. And so Mercury is giving us an open opportunity for intuition, creativity, thinking outside the box, because Neptune is always going to help us get some ideas from the quantum field, from the unknown, from what's behind the veil. So Mercury trine Neptune is very nice, and that's going to be at 3:26 a.m. Wednesday. But, we'll be feeling it again. You'll feel it Tuesday. You'll feel it Wednesday. You'll feel it probably a little bit maybe tomorrow. Thursday, maybe not so much, because Mercury then will slide into Sag. And that's a few hours after it trines Neptune, but I think that the upcoming Mercury trine Neptune will be with us for a few days early in the week before it goes into Sag. And so Mercury in Scorpio is one thing, maybe a little sarcastic, but very insightful, maybe very connected to our intuition and ideas that come from there with Mercury trine Neptune, all that watery energy. Very nice. And then when it goes into Sag, okay, this is where it's going to go retrograde in Sagittarius. And it's going to be 6 degrees Sagittarius, so we have some time before it gets there. And then it will station, and then it will go backwards at 6 degrees Sagittarius. Now, Mercury went retrograde in Sagittarius last year, and it hovered around that 10, 11, 12, and I think it went back to 6 and then turned around and came back. It was in the middle of that area of Sagittarius for weeks last year, and that was December. So this is going to be different because it's going to come back into Scorpio. And so this passage, we're already in the shadow, this passage of the late degrees of Scorpio where it's been in these last days, this is where it's coming back to. So it's going to go retrograde on the 9th of November and go direct on the 29th. So just 20 days, and that's good. That's not a long extended Mercury retrograde that sometimes we have, when it's 25 days, 24 days. It should really be around 3 weeks. So this is a little less. So that's good. That's good. And on the same day, Wednesday, which I think is the most excitable day of the week, Mercury will then oppose Uranus at 3:36 p.m. So obviously anything going into early Sag is going to oppose Uranus at early Gemini. Now here's the fun news. This is going to happen 3 times. Mercury is going to oppose Uranus, but it's going to oppose Uranus in Sagittarius now. And then once Mercury is moving on into Sag and then turns around and comes back and goes into Scorpio again, it will oppose Uranus, who will be back in Taurus. So this is very interesting. This is a little story we have going on. So this is passage number 1. Passage number 2 is going to happen on the 19th of November. So that's when Mercury will oppose Uranus again, but it will be in the sign of Scorpio opposing Uranus in Taurus. And that is the 19th of November. And then it will do it again, same thing, Scorpio, where Mercury is opposing Uranus in Taurus on December 10th. Okay, so there's a lot of Uranus-Mercury energy. This is a little story, but the story starts in mutable signs and then ends up in fixed signs. So there may be 2 components to this story. Now, if you are a person who has Mercury opposite Uranus and you are going to get triggered by this or have a recurrence, as I let you know, if we are having a recurrence, this is going to pass 3 times. And so I expect a lot of excitable energy, a lot of brilliant ideas, a lot of genius flying around, innovation, great for all of this. But please keep the caffeine to a minimum. Keep your mind focused. Do your meditations. Be careful driving, but try not to do 10 things at once, especially when we're in mutable signs, with Uranus and Gemini. It's like, I want to do 3 things at the same time. Wait, I can do all of this. I can multitask. So multitasking might be the order of the day, but please just use this energy for creative endeavors and for genius ideas and for clever solutions. This is what this energy is best used for. It's not good if you allow anxiousness to overcome you. It's not good if you get overwhelmed. It's not good if you start having, panic feelings or thoughts or circling thoughts. Just keep yourself grounded during these times, okay? And maybe the energy will be a little more grounded when we're Scorpio Taurus as opposed to this Sag Gemini. And so we are working with this energy from this week until December 10th. That's a long time. That's a good month and a half, okay? And so we've got to really pay attention because there's a message for all of us in this, okay? There's a message for all of us in this. There's something that we're all supposed to be doing, knowing, thinking about, creating, discovering. This is uncovering beliefs, thoughts, things that could be holding you back, right? So this is something that you want to really observe in yourself. You want to look at your thoughts, pay attention to your thoughts, observe, be aware of what your thoughts are doing. Maybe you are thinking thoughts you no longer want to be thinking, okay? Clearing old thought patterns, beliefs, old ideas and notions that have nothing to do with where you want to be in your life. This is the one hard aspect that Mercury is going to be making. This is not the other flowing aspects. Now, what I mentioned is that we're looking at Mercury trining Neptune on the same day it opposes Uranus. So this is going to happen again too. So as Neptune stations and stays at 29 Pisces, Mercury is going to go do this retrograde back and forth, 29 Scorpio, back and forth. It's going to go back to 20 degrees Scorpio, okay? And it will dance past Neptune this week. And then again, when it's having that opposition with Uranus, it's going to dance past Neptune again another 2 times. So like I said, Mercury opposite Uranus is the hard aspect. It's not going to be a hard aspect to Neptune. It's going to be a soft aspect to Neptune and to Pluto and to Jupiter every time it makes this movement from ends of signs and Saturn. And so this is really a lot of energy that Mercury is carrying around during this retrograde. It's going to touch all of the planets that are making the transitions. Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, all of them that are at the end of a sign and moving back and forth. Mercury is going to sort of chime in and connect with all of them as it moves from Scorpio to Sagittarius and back into Scorpio and then back into Sagittarius again. Okay, so this week it's going to enter Sag, leave Scorpio, and then once it goes back into Scorpio again after the retrograde in November, then it's going to touch all these planets again that have gone back into Pisces. So we've got a lot of activity from Mercury over these next 6 weeks or so. Between its retrograde and its back and forth, it's not staying quiet. It's having a conversation with, and I'll say it again, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. Okay? And it's really, really doing this dance and bringing all these planets along with it. Okay? And so this has been a lot of energy for us to sit through this, the retrogrades of, Saturn and Neptune and Uranus, and what we'll be going through until the early part of next year. And I'm going to pause for a moment and tell you I have already scheduled my look at 2026, which is going to be December 2nd. And I'd love to see you there. So join me. And it's going to be that evening. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can now book it on my website. It's Tuesday, the 2nd of December. And you can book it on my website. It's $55 to join me in looking at 2026 and what's going to happen once all of these retrogrades and everything stops. Everything is then in a new sign. We've got a new world, a new paradigm, new things. Okay, we have a lot to talk about for 2026. This was the in-between year. This is why I called it the liminal labyrinth. It's the in-between year. Next year is the year that we're going to carry out everything we've been planning this year, okay? So join me on December 2nd, and we'll be looking at the year ahead. And, it's always a good time. We ask lively questions, have lots of conversation. People are interested, so it's really good. You can go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and click book online, and it will be one of the options that comes up that you'll have to scroll through some appointments and things to see which one it is. Also, you can DM me. It's been in my stories in Instagram. You can DM me there, or you can write to me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com, and then I can send you the link to purchase the lecture. I'm also doing something on November 5th, which is my Q&A, Ask Deb Anything. And this doesn't have to pertain to astrology. It could be anything: meditation, my 5D Reiki, my new vision system, emotional clearing, meditation, manifestation, everything. The quantum field, you can ask me anything. So come, that's only $25, and you can find it the same way you'll find the lecture of 2026, which is the Rebellion of Fire and Air. Okay, so meanwhile, we have Mercury talking to all these planets that are going to be changing signs. And Mercury is having this dialogue and having this conversation. Very fascinating. So it is an important time to keep our ear to the ground as we watch Mercury and feel Mercury connect with each of these big giants in the sky. Okay, there's going to be a lot of information for us, and I think it's important. I think as we move into this new feeling, this new paradigm, the planets leaving behind the past and moving into the future. And for Neptune, it's been 12 years in its own sign. So this is a huge step forward for everybody, and Neptune will be accompanied by Saturn. We're going to talk all about these things at my lecture on December 2nd, but more in depth. And this is something really, really, I think, important that Mercury is having a dialogue. It's preparing us. We're being prepared. So we have to pay attention. We have to connect with how we're feeling and what's coming for us in these next months. In February when that happens, and then again at the end of April. All of this is really a very dynamic experience of our lives and the next chapter. So Mercury talking to all of this in these dynamics is going to be very, very revealing over these next bunch of weeks. So keep your ear to the ground. The other thing I want to say is that Mercury and Mars, they made a conjunction a week ago, right? On the 20th, they made a conjunction in Scorpio. They will do that again in Sagittarius. They're both going to go into Sagittarius, but this is during the whole time of Mercury slowing down, because Mars will catch up to where Mercury is, and Mars and Mercury are going to meet again in conjunction in Sagittarius. This does not happen. It's not that Mercury and Mars don't meet up a few times. They meet up once, and Mercury usually goes faster and goes away. The fact that they're in the same area of the zodiac at the same time, first of all, because that doesn't always happen, because Mercury is always following the sun and Mars is not usually that close to the sun. But Mars and Mercury coming together and then coming together again in another sign, this is a lot of energy as well. So Mercury's very busy. Remember, he's the communicator, and remember, he's the only one that can go into the underworld and come back up unscathed, right? He's not going to die in the underworld. He's the messenger. So he's bringing us a lot of information. We need to pay attention. Then on Thursday, the 30th this week, we're going to have Mercury in Sag talking to Pluto, sextile Pluto. So this is yet again another one of these things that's going to be repeating. So that is more intense, more good for focus. It's a sextile, so it's a smooth aspect. It's not a hard aspect. It's a really good dynamic for creativity. Again, also very insightful thinking, also specific thinking. Pluto is ready for deep thinking. It's something where we want to pay attention again to the information we're receiving. This dynamic is going to happen again too. So then we start talking about Venus. And Venus is going to oppose Chiron, because Venus is still in her favorite sign of Libra. And she will oppose Chiron in Aries on Saturday, the 1st of November. Can you believe it's November already? That's All Saints' Day, or All Souls' Day. And Venus opposite Chiron is, she's in her sign of Libra. And so this is about relationships, and the opposition is about relationships. And the wounds that we feel, that we encounter when dealing with others, and how we resolve those wounds, how we work with those wounds, how we feel those wounds. Where are they for us in our horoscope, our chart? Where do they appear in our lives, and how does this dynamic work for us? How do they present and show us perhaps the wounds that we have encountered in our relationships with others? And perhaps you are extending a hand to a friend who has been wounded too. This is an opposition. Remember, it's you and another person. And it really shines a light. And Venus in Libra is harmonious. She likes to be there, which shines a light on where perhaps we may need to open our hearts more. Yeah, there's that again, right? I said that with Venus and Saturn. This is another time when we want to be able to put aside the wounds, lick the wounds as necessary, but really allow ourselves to open our hearts and not act from a place of defense, to act from a place of love and open-heartedness. And if you need to be cautious in some dynamic, well, then do that, of course. But not to shut people out, shut them down, to really present an open heart and be a little vulnerable when we are encountering others. And so this is going to happen Eastern time, Sunday at 1:37 a.m. But, if you're in Europe, you're in the eastern part of the world, it'll be Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning for you. And then Venus from that place is going to square Jupiter. And so really next Sunday, she's going to oppose Chiron, which is very important. And then later that day at 6:17 p.m. Eastern time, and it's daylight savings time finished at that point that day, she will square Jupiter in Cancer. And so this is, I think, an ideal scenario, because if it's going to oppose Chiron and we have to deal with our wounds or how we may have wounded others, you have to own that. It's going to square Jupiter, which tells me it's going to be okay. Okay, whatever you are working through, whatever you are working out in that dynamic between Venus and Chiron and recognizing wounds, you're going to allow yourself to feel better later. You're not going to wallow in woundedness. Wallow in woundedness. You're not going to do that, because Jupiter is there embracing Venus. Even though it's a square, it's like, wow, okay, I overcame that, or I know how to make amends with myself and others. And this to me says we really are paying attention to our relationships, and we're watching ourselves go from this opposition from Chiron, which is very, very sensitive and a bit of an out, to Jupiter. Now, it's not like a soft aspect to Jupiter, but Venus and Jupiter, when they're together, even if it's a square, okay, it can be really, really good and lovely. And, even if it's a square, but here's what you don't want to do. That can be overindulgence. What you don't want to do is feel wounded or recognize a wound or have something triggered for you and then go out and overindulge to numb yourself. Okay? That's important here. You want to feel the feelings and send the forgiveness and connect with your heart and open your heart, and not go have a hot fudge sundae, okay? Unless you're sharing it with the person you've made amends with, that's different. But I'm saying that you don't want to feel bad or wallow in woundedness and then I'm going to go buy a $500 purse, okay? I'm going to go have that hot fudge sundae. I'm going to overindulge, eat too much, whatever. And what you don't want to do is numb the feelings from the Venus Chiron, okay? That's the caution with the square from Jupiter, Venus to Jupiter, okay? You want to feel your feelings and then let them lift. When you feel them, they will lift. They will go away. You don't want to push them. You don't want to shove them under the carpet. You want to experience whatever it is that you have to experience with that Venus Chiron, and then have gratitude for the experience, whatever it was, and move past whatever those feelings were, if they were an out, and then make some peace with it. They are in good places. Venus is in her sign, Jupiter's in its exaltation sign. So this is really very positive, okay? So that's how the week is going to end this week and then begin. This is the last week of October of 2025. October is ending. I cannot believe it. Wow. And so then the following week, when we get into the first week in November, there's a lot going on. But we're going to save that for next week. So if you want to join me in any of these lovely events I'm going to have, I'm having two, please go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and you will find them under Book Online. If you don't want to scroll, email me, dev@devmcbride.com, info@thegoldenastrologer.com. And I will give you the link. And you can go on Instagram. It's going to be in my stories. I'm talking about it on Instagram. I sent out a blog last week about what I'm doing. So if you want to go to Astrologer's Thoughts on my website, The Golden Astrologer, you can do that. And the links are there as well. And I am available for expansion mentoring, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. If you want to go deeper in these months ahead when we are having so much change, so much transformation, and we may need some support and guidance, that's what I'm here for. You can set up an astrology session with me. You can work with me on Reiki. You can learn Reiki from me. And I invite you to do all of these things. They are available on my website, and you can write to me and ask me more questions about these things. Or you can come to my Ask Deb Anything night and ask more questions about them and talk to me about it, and we can go into a little more depth there. I expect a lively conversation that night, and people coming with their good questions, and we can have some fun and some interesting insights to things as well. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful week ahead. Pay attention to Mercury. Listen, keep your ear to the ground, and just remember that a lot of information is coming our ways. Maybe you want to journal about it. Take note of the synchronicities that come your way, of the information you're receiving, of what people are telling you. Have a beautiful, blessed week. Gratitude to each and every one of you. Thank you for listening.